Hello, welcome back to Spicy Marriage Radio. This is Travis.
Hi, everybody.
And I'm Kimberly.
This is episode 7. So if this is
Siete.
this your first time
Siete.
meeting us?
And
well,
if
welcome.
so, go check out the other 6 episodes. Start from episode 1.
Spicy Marriage Radio. You can binge watch season 1 right now.
Yeah.
I think you have to have 7 episodes before you can actually binge watch.
No, it needs to be 10 to 13 episodes before you can binge watch.
I guess that would be a complete season, but you can still,
Yeah.
you can knock out a couple of hours on this if you wanted to.
I would say 2 hours at
Yeah.
most. Yeah.
So we, I don't know, I'm kind of excited about this conversation. We have lots of different topics that people have been giving us to talk about.
Yes, and thank you for that, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. We appreciate that. So keep the questions coming.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to hear from us about specific things, obviously we have a crazy history and we have a crazy future. But one of the things that's happening right now, especially in our country, is the racial tension that is happening in culture, in law enforcement. It's kind of crazy, and we've been married for almost 14 years now.
Yep.
Yeah. So today what we're going to do is, these are about 5 questions that interracial couples get asked on a regular basis. And we're going to talk about some race stuff as far as how do we handle that? How do we teach our kids?
Yeah.
Your experiences, my experiences, and kind of where we're at, because I feel like if we don't talk about it, then we don't educate other people and ourselves in the process. So,
Yeah. And just to let you know, everyone's experience is very different, but at the same time, there's always that common ground of what you have experienced, So everyone has their own story. You can't say, well, that's just mild. But in the end, everyone has their story to tell. And that's the whole reason behind us talking and everyone listening and kind of hearing everyone's piece. And, you know.
So in the midst of this, I haven't felt led to protest or march in the midst of this. Have you felt a desire to want to do that?
I would be lying if I didn't say I did not feel that. But at the same time, I have to realize the people I need to educate are my children. It starts at home as far as having that conversation. And I feel like it's a very sore subject for me, being a Black woman. But at the same time, I'm also a Hispanic woman, and also growing up in a household where I was taught to respect the police, and my uncle being a police officer.
And your cousin.
And now, it's passed on to the next generation. So now 2 of my cousins are also police officers. They are police officers in the NYPD.
Yeah. And it's pretty crazy on the streets of New York, as we've seen.
As it is, yes. I mean, it was a moment of, oh my goodness, are my cousins okay? And checking in on them. And I've heard back from one of them, and she said that she's okay. But I don't know about my other cousin, and I'm just praying for them and covering them in prayer. And then on the other side of things, I have cousins that are darker skinned than me and male, and they've told me they've gotten stopped, that they're scared. It's a crazy thing to think that, especially, again, because I grew up in a household where my uncle was a police officer and I was surrounded by police officers. So just to know that you have other family members who grew up in the same household as you and telling you, that they're scared, it's a crazy thing to think of that. But at the same time, you have to realize, the one thing that makes sense is that there are those who are bad apples. You have to realize that. There are bad apples in any kind of group that you are part of. And when it comes to a police officer, there are a huge amount of good police officers. And then you've got those rotten few that said yes to doing something that they had no business saying yes to taking on that call of being a police officer or whatever line of duty you choose to do with hatred in your heart, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think overall the narrative of what we're seeing is very controlled because there's a lot of like peaceful protests happening
Yes.
in the midst
Yes,
of this,
there are.
but it seems like only thing that we're getting shown is the looting and the rioting.
Right.
And it's like, why is the major news channels only reporting these kind of scenarios rather than the peaceful ones, which there are like far more peaceful protests
Yes, there
happening
are.
than
And I think
riots.
it's they want to feed that beast, right? They want to feed the evil that's within us, and the more that we consume all.
That's not within me. You speak for yourself.
No, oh, jeez. No, but do you know what I mean? Like, it's what you are choosing to consume, and so they're saying, "Let me have these people watch all these negative things," and then kind of like it's creating more of this. Since I don't, what's the word?
And there's desensitizing or creating fear.
That, and just also wanting to see a negative reaction out of people versus the positive reaction or the peacefulness coming out of people.
You were telling me that like where these peaceful protests were happening, all of a sudden there's like a pile of bricks that have no business being there.
Exactly.
And they're taking pictures of these.
Right. So I just happened to be scrolling on Instagram, and this person showed on Instagram like a quick little video of them protesting, and it was just a peaceful protest. And then all of a sudden they noticed like a pile of bricks that should not be on a sidewalk, and then showed on camera that there was no construction taking place, but all of a sudden there's a pile of bricks.
Yeah, it's like a setup.
Hello. Yeah, you're literally setting someone up. Like, you know, we've got this snack fruit challenge for kids, right? You're putting it in front of them and you're trying to see, are they tempted or do they choose to listen to that person that is their authority? If I say, don't touch that and I'll be back in 5 minutes, do you think that child is not going to touch it? And most of these kids that I've seen have not touched it, but you're saying now, here's a pile of bricks. I dare you not to touch that.
I think it's just interesting, like the whole narrative that's happening and like maybe trying to understand what is the media really trying to convey and what is the government really wanting to happen? Is there almost like an instigation in some of this stuff to like, hey, look, like here's an opportunity to do this. And I think it's obvious that our country needs to shift and change throughout the generation of the way that we perceive people overall, and especially like the Black community, as far as like the systematic oppression that has happened generation after generation. It's obvious that things need to change. However, I feel like the way it's being pursued, or the way that the government or media wants it to be pursued, it doesn't actually bring the change that is really needed. And it's almost like, you know, we're pushing people into the presidential ballot, right? To go and vote.
That is a reminder right there, folks. So don't get disillusioned, because this is also voting season.
Right.
So please look into where you live and vote. For those in Las Vegas and in Henderson in Nevada, our voting day is June 9th. Please do not
Look
forget
at her
that
face.
we
She's
are
real serious
voting.
right now.
No, I am serious, because it's really irritating to know that people chose not to vote like not too long ago.
But here's the thing.
I was going
to make a really important point. Okay. You need to vote. Like Kimberly is saying,
yes,
it's really
June 9th,
important. Okay.
in the state of Nevada.
But here's the thing.
What?
Most people are only concerned with the presidential ballot, right? The voting that actually makes the difference is the other people that you're voting for. I don't think people realize.
That's June 9th.
Right. I know what you're saying, but I don't think people realize like that opportunity to vote is what makes sometimes a bigger difference than who you vote for as president. Like, who are you voting for as your judge? Who is your congressperson, right? Who's your senator? Like these kind of things, understanding the different parts of government and who actually is writing the bills, who's actually changing the laws. Yep. Like, are you voting for the right people? Not necessarily like, only the right people, but are you voting for the right positions? And I think that's the thing that really needs to change in our communities, in our culture, is are we even educated about how our government actually works? Because I don't even feel like I'm educated enough to make real decisions, if I'm being honest. Right. So it's challenging, but let's have some fun, because I know like this is a serious topic, but we're going to talk about interracial couples and maybe some questions that we have.
Cannot see, I'm not joking, but if you literally cannot see and you only hear our voices, again, I'm an Afro-Latina and I am married to a Caucasian male.
I'm a mutt.
Because he's Irish, German, Jewish, so on and so forth.
Something. Yeah. You did the, what was it? Ancestry.com?
Which I kind of regret, because now they got my DNA.
You think they're running tests on you?
I don't know. They just
You never know, right?
You never know. They could implement me in something.
All right. So here is first question. Do you only date white guys or black girls?
Well, again, we're married.
We're married.
The obvious. But I guess you could say before.
Yeah.
So should I start that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So again, I grew up in New York, and in my household, there was literally all different shades. So you could say I literally did not see a specific in mind. It was more so about the personality, the way the person's family atmosphere was like. And so that was kind of what I was going towards. But predominantly, I did end up with white males. It was just out of not necessarily preference, but just, yeah, it is what it is. It was just kind of like I would date whomever was right in the mind, basically.
You had a crush on Justin Timberlake. Stop lying.
Yes, I did. Okay.
Don't let her lie to you. For me, I can remember even as a little kid, like always I remember in first grade, I was always attracted to girls that were just a darker skin complexion for some reason, whether they were Latino or black or whatever. It was just, for some reason, that was just, even as a little kid, like I was just something I was attracted to. So, and that continued until I met you, where I found my perfect match.
Oh.
So, I mean, it's interesting. And maybe, I don't know if you guys, you know, before you were, right here.
No.
Oh, okay. Before, you know, whether you're married or you're dating or whatever kind of relationship situation that you're in, we want to hear from you. Like, are you attracted to a certain skin tone or a certain culture, right, or are you attracted to a certain person? Or does it not matter? And I don't think it should matter, but I think at the same time, I don't know, you have, I guess, certain preferences in who you're attracted to. And like when I look back, I can't even talk because like you're so hot right now. I don't know why. Like,
oh my goodness.
When I look at you, like, and your smile, see, I'm just complimenting you on camera right now. Are you going to blush?
I'm already blushed because I put blush on. So.
All right.
All right. So the next question says, how does your family feel about your relationship?
I don't think my family has, if they ever did not agree with my dating preferences, I don't think they ever said anything to me, and they never like made me feel a certain way, even though like you wonder because like, you know, we're taught in certain senses to be opposed to certain people groups. Mm-hmm. It's not something that you're born in like, oh, like I don't like this person because of this, this, and this. So, I mean, it's interesting because, you know, my parents grew up in a different time. They were like on the end of the hippie movement.
Such a hippie.
They were both, you know, kind of hippies. And it was a different time. But I think, you know, both my parents are open to just anybody, all cultures. So I don't think it was ever an issue for us.
Right.
I know where some families, they have stories of like,
Right.
man, if you bring a white dude home, you gonna get it.
Yeah.
Or if you bring a black girl home, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, which breaks my heart that they would have to deal with something like that, because to be able to have that fear in your heart when you're like, I'm in love with this person, or whatever those heart connections are, and you're like, I'm excited to bring this person to meet my family,
Right.
only in turn for your family to reject this person based on their color and not what the words are, you know what I mean? Like as soon as they open their mouth to say like, oh, I don't like, or I do
Yeah.
like, but it was just
Well,
automatic.
it's
shut down.
interesting, like even in cultures around the world, like in India, in South America, like if you're a Latino who's dark skinned and like you're not as favorable
You're
to the
not.
family
Let's be
who's fair
realistic.
skinned, or
You're
like
not.
if you marry someone who's fairer skinned, all of a sudden like that's more prestigious. And I think
Right.
this is like just this whole body image thing of skin color is like you see it in all different cultures. You see it in India in the makeup ads, all of the actors, even though the majority of India is darker skin color,
Yeah.
all of the actors are lighter skin color.
Right.
They bring in models from
They do.
around
They
the
really
world
do.
to
Again, it's what you are willing to consume and perceive as your own. That's what they're going to push and put forth onto you
Yeah.
from a very small age. And so back to this question, like I said, I grew up in a household, literally all shades of the rainbow. And I was never told growing up, you should marry another Hispanic person. Like it was never that. It was just like, you marry whomever you want. I want to make sure that whoever you marry will provide for you in that sense, brings that you bring what you need to bring to the table and vice versa. So I would say honestly, Travis was the first person I brought home because all the other people was just like, it wasn't really worth it. You know what I mean? Like they weren't worth it. You were worth it. And my parents had no issues based on his skin color.
Yeah.
There was none of that, So again, if you look at my family history, probably put up a photo of all the different shades within my family, from dark skin tone to literally the color of my husband.
Yeah.
So there's
I
all
feel like we're
shades.
moving into a generation where that's the normal. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I don't think like a lot of people are like, oh, the racial tension is so high. And like, there's this, and I know that it still exists.
It does still exist. Because again, remember, we did a road trip not too long ago.
Yeah.
And we went cross country, and you can see that there was major differences in certain.
Where you went, people
Yeah.
would look at you differently.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was just, again, for a girl who grew up in New York and, seeing all different kinds
Yeah.
of culture, it was a
And
little bit.
we've the two places we've lived, New York and Las Vegas, are both pretty culturally open.
Vegas, it's a little bit questionable. I'm not going to lie. Vegas is a little bit questionable.
Sometimes. Remember that time we were at Sunset Station and
We might have to bleep that out
why?
because I don't know if we can say the place we were at.
Okay. Remember that time we were in that casino and we were like, there was like an oyster bar there. And I think we were picking up food.
No, we were sitting there eating.
We were sitting there eating and there was this lady, she was like super drunk, right?
Did we have both kids or one kid?
I think we had, I don't remember. I think we had both kids, Trent and Kane.
Okay.
And we were sitting there and she was just started like saying certain things. Like she was very
pause
What did she
because
say?
I remember word for word. Because again, I'm a girl from New York. I'm exposed to all different kinds of culture. Then I come out here to Vegas, assuming it was the same thing. Then you go into this oyster bar. We're a family. And this woman comes over and says, you two should not be together because what you're doing is wrong.
It was
End
kind of
quote.
like, you two should not be together.
Drunk. Mind you, he's drunk.
Drunk.
And that motherly instinct in me, because you're saying this while my two young children, I had an infant and a toddler, and I wanted to rip her throat out. And he was like, no, she's drunk. And I'm like, no, I'm about to knock some common sense into her.
I mean, things come to the surface when people are inebriated. But that's something that obviously she really felt in her heart, like, this is not right. This shouldn't be. And I'm going to say something about it. And I think because she was drunk, it came to the surface. So it's interesting, like how many people feel that way deep in their heart, but yet they don't say it. But because she was drunk, she was willing to have the guts to say it in that moment.
Yes, and then you have those who don't care or have no filter and still say things.
Yeah,
Like,
no, that's true as well.
I still experience some of that, which I'm shocked in the atmosphere that I'm part of to have to experience that. Where just last week had someone say, because they were describing a family situation, and because this child is a mixed child, the person had the audacity to say, well, because they're blacks. Just because you whisper it doesn't make it any better.
Yeah.
Like, are you serious? Do you not know that I am a black woman? Like, okay, you're clearly that dumb. That's what you are. You're literally that dumb.
I can tell you get frustrated over some of these things still. And, you know, a lot of our friends are all different cultures. You know, I would say he's a spiritual son, Nate. We were talking on the phone the other day, and he was telling me about some of his experiences with police officers or different situations. And we have like candid conversations where he gets frustrated in certain community situations being a black man. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, bro, like I completely understand what you're feeling and what you're experiencing in these different groups. And I hate to say it, and we've had this conversation, but like, for some reason, like, bro, you don't get the luxury of just saying whatever you want all of the time because you're a black man, because other people will think a certain way to you and doors will close. And even though it's not right that those relationships or doors will close on you, mm-hmm. like he literally has to watch what he says in certain situations. And it's, in a lot of ways, it's unfair.
It is, because again, you have stupid people who don't care and say whatever they want to say and don't have that luxury of saying, like, filter what you're saying. Because you know what I mean? Like, you have that privilege, unfortunately, to say whatever the hell you want to say. But then as a black person, you can't, because then you're deemed angry.
Right.
You're deemed pissed,
right.
agitated, defensive,
mm-hmm.
violent, and so on and so forth. And it's like, these are such ugly words that are associated.
I think when
with
you
a black
cut
person.
people off, any human being, if you cut them off from being able to express themselves in a healthy way, that it will come up in unhealthy ways later mm-hmm. on. Because anytime you suppress who you are, what you're feeling, and don't have a platform to share with that. Now, see, I think what happens a lot of times is that black people will have those conversations with each other, but it's not always available to talk with someone of a different race about these feelings, right? Mm-hmm. So it's like we need to. Here's the reason why I felt like I didn't want to go protest. I didn't want to go do these things, because the greatest thing that I feel like I can do is cultivate relationships and hear people's hearts face to face.
Yep.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, and teach my kids and establish a generation that is going to come up, that is going to think differently, that is going to go after relationship differently. Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I'm really passionate about that kind of thing.
Right. And so, speaking about our kids, so with our oldest, Trent, again, living out here in Nevada, I mean, it could be different in different places, but it was the first time that he was ever pointed out about his skin color. Mm. I remember it because he was in preschool. He was about 3, 4, and he's like, Mom. And I'm like, what? You know, waiting to hear about his day. And he's like, they said I'm Samoan. And I'm like, what do you mean they said you're Samoan?
He like, does kind of look Samoan.
Because my skin color. And I'm like, what's your skin color? He's like, they said I'm dark. And I'm like, yeah, you are dark. You do get dark when you tan and then you lighten up. So yes, you are dark skinned. And he's like, but they said I'm Samoan, so I'm Samoan. And I'm like, no, you're not. Sorry. You know, I had to explain to him, like, your dad is this and mom is this. And it was like the first time to have that conversation. I didn't think I would ever have to have that conversation with my 3 to 4-year-old.
Yeah.
You know? And fast forward, had to have that conversation I think I had to have that conversation with Kane, probably around the same age.
Yeah, it's
And
interesting.
then
Like,
Zoe just recently with everything taking place.
like our kids, I would say look more Latino or Samoan, or I mean, I guess Trent might look Samoan, but I don't think the other kids do as
Kane
much.
looks, not gonna lie, Kane kind of looks Indian.
He does kind of look Indian. Yeah. It's interesting. Our kids are like a really interesting mixture. But it's
Especially when they're in the sun.
what's clear to me
Dark
is
and
that
lovely.
because of their features and the way they look, they're not going to experience racism the same way as someone who is fully black. Or like some kids that are mixed, right? Black and white, they look like they look black. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like their hair, everything, like their features. But our kids are like, I don't know, it's just an interesting mixture. I think maybe because you're also Latina, that there's been like this mixture. And I don't know, I was talking about it with Sinclair, and he was like, yeah, like it's clear that like your kids won't experience the same thing that I experience
Right.
as a black man. You know what I mean? And he's saying like, and that's cool for them, but like the things that he's experienced and he's shared with me, like with police officers and with culture at large, like is crazy. It's crazy stuff. So
It is. It's very, as a parent, it's very gut wrenching, and at the same time realizing it's my duty as a parent, as a mom, to make sure my children know love. What
Yeah.
does love look like? Love looks like you speak up whenever you see someone hurt, whenever you see something that isn't right in your gut, you speak up for the ones who can't speak up,
yeah,
you know? And I have
good.
two of my kids that are very vocal and one who can really be vocal, you know? So it's like, I need to make sure that they use their ability for good,
yeah,
you know?
it's good.
So
Well-
do we want to continue to answer these questions? Or
No,
are we
we've been
done?
going for about 27 minutes.
Oh,
So it goes pretty fast.
yes, it does. And I'm hungry. And I think I want to get some killer cereals.
Killer cereals.
Yes, I found out this was a place I had seen, I think on Food
Is this
Network
in-
or something.
In the mall?
Yes, it's in the mall, and I wanted
Actually,
to check
that's a
it
black
out.
owned business.
That's what I found out today too.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I could kill some cereal too. Yeah.
That's cool. All right. So we thank you guys for joining us on this discussion. Let us know your thoughts on interracial marriage. Have you ever experienced anything if you're an interracial couple?
Right.
Do you feel like our country and our society is moving past this? Do you feel like we're going to get to a place in the next generation where race won't be as big an issue as it has been in the past, as far as, you know, the systematic oppression over people of color? Do you see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
are we going to move past this? Because it's
Honestly, I would not want my children's generation to have to continue to speak up and do these protests. I would want to see it end within this year. Let there be a change in some kind of way. I would love to see how God would start to move
Yeah.
between everyone and their hearts, and using everyone's platform that has that ability for God to be able to use their words to create some kind of major wave in the world that is like no other.
Yeah. I think when the Spirit of God is released, it's impossible for us to hold on to unforgiveness or just these things that cloud our vision to be able to see people any other way than the way that God created them, as beautiful, as amazing, as holy. I mean, when we look at people and see them face to face and hear their heart, and we have the Spirit of God, I think that's really the issue at hand, is that there's so many people who don't really know God.
Right.
And if you don't know God, then how can you know his creation and respect his creation? So it's like, you know, and it's a lot of times our eyes are blinded by pain and fear, and we're upset. So then it becomes harder. So I really hope that these protests don't become a stumbling block in the long run as far as like moving past and, establishing a culture and society that, is going to appreciate each other. So.
Yeah. All right. Thank you for tuning in to episode 7.
Yeah.
This is Hot and Spicy Marriage Radio.
Oh, you had to add the hot on?
I don't know. My brain just
Are you thinking about
out.
crawfish?
Oh, yeah, I'm hungry.
See you guys later.
Bye.